Hey friends, welcome back to the show. Today we have an extra special treat. I have a guest host. Dr. Melinda Vandevort is with us. She is the host of Choose Your Next Yes podcast, where she helps professional women learn to listen to God's voice and know when to say yes to the career they've always wanted and no to everything else. She helps them clarify their purpose and find the courage to pursue their personal and professional goals in midlife and beyond to reclaim the women they once aspired to be. Mel has been an educator for over 20 years. She moved into administration in 2016 when she realized her passion to become a school leader and help other teachers become the best instructor they could be. Mel has a very strong passion for encouraging others to consider leadership. Welcome to the Grace-Filled Leader Podcast. Do you want better work-life balance? Do you get stuck in patterns of perfectionism and people-pleasing? Have you always been an overachiever, but never really feel good enough, no matter how much outward success you achieve? Hi, I'm Tanya, a wife, mom, leader, Christian life coach, and Jesus lover. For most of my life, I tried to find worthiness through achievement. But no matter how hard I worked or how much I achieved, I never felt like I was enough. I was left burned out, empty, and exhausted. I had no time or energy for myself or my family. I needed balance. I needed peace. I finally started to live like an unconditionally loved daughter of the King, saved by grace. This faith-led podcast will teach you self-care routines and practical leadership strategies to help you navigate life and leadership. If you're ready to stop people-pleasing and start living and leading God's way, this podcast is for you. Unbutton your blazers, sister friends. It's time to get after it. Friends, I'd like you to join me in welcoming Dr. Melinda Vandevort to the show. Mel, thanks so much for joining us today on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is actually my first interview with someone on a podcast. I'm usually the interviewer. And so it's kind of a nice treat to be on the other side and just not have to do all the technical stuff. So go you.
Yeah. So first, can you just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, what you do, who you serve?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, I'm a daughter of Christ. But I'm also a mom of 3 amazing men, an amazing daughter-in-law, a grandson, and a granddaughter. And I also have a boyfriend. I am an educator of adults in many different capacities. I currently coach teachers to be more effective in their instruction. And I've recently started coaching midlife women who are ready to make that career change, but they're maybe just not super clear on what direction that God is calling them to go in their new empty nester life or their midlife, their next phase of life.
Cool. I love that you said your daughter-in-law. I've never heard that before. So that's instead of your daughter-in-law, she's your daughter-in-law?
Yes.
Cool.
She is amazing. I love her so much. She is my son's second wife, and she is the stepmom to my grandson. She's the mom to my granddaughter, but she's the stepmom to my grandson. And she has taken my grandson and she loves him like he is her own.
Oh.
She treats him so amazing, and she is one of my kids. Like she's not my daughter-in-law, someone who just came into my family through marriage. She is one of my children. So when people ask me how many children I have 6, because I have 3 sons of my own. I have my daughter-in-law and my 2 grandchildren. So when I pray for them, I pray for my children, and that means all 6 of them. So.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool. I can't wait to be a grandma, although I shouldn't wish for that too soon. I have 20-something-year-old kids too. So,
well, it's an amazing place to be in your life, and having adult children is an amazing place to be. And some of my women struggle with being empty nesters now and not knowing what to do with themselves. And they just feel like they almost are in a depression because their kids have left home and they don't really know what to do with themselves. But the dynamic that I have with my children now is so amazing. You can have adult conversations with them. I learn from them. They lean on me for wisdom. Hopefully they use it. They ask my opinion. I give it to them. So whether or not they use it is, I guess, yet to be seen on some things, but yeah, it's just it's an amazing place to be. Like, you can be the grandma. I don't call myself grandma because I feel like that makes me sound old. So I am Nana. Nana
Oh,
is my title. So it's a great title to have.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, empty nesting is a deal. Like, you know, I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I can't wait till my kids leave the house," and I've never, ever, ever been that mom. Like, I feel best when my babies, so to say, are under my roof. You know, when
Mhm.
my daughter, who's my oldest, graduated, I feel like for at least a year, my husband and I were in mourning, like, it just was uncomfortable. Like, you've, especially as the mom, like that's been your primary hat. Like, you know,
Right.
you tend to take that as such a big piece of your identity. Is so, but now, like you said, it's so cool to have new adult relationships with them. Like, and then when they, when there's that moment that they realize maybe life wasn't so bad and you know, weren't quite so dumb, you know,
Yes,
that you
yes,
seem to be at age
exactly.
13 through, you know, 17 or whatever. So
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, I actually have a podcast episode called Identity Crisis because sometimes women will get to that point where they just don't know who they are because they've only had like certain titles their entire like adult life. And mom is one of those, or wife, or whatever it may be. And they just don't know how to get out of that and find their new identity and be like rediscover who they are and become the person that they always dreamt of being when they
right.
were growing up. And so, yeah, um, I love this season of my life with my children.
Yeah.
Yes. Was it hard when the first one left? Yeah, absolutely. My first one went in the military. And so he
Ooh.
was far away for 8 weeks after he left. I couldn't even talk to him hardly at all. Like, the first 4 weeks, we had no contact with
Oh,
him. And then we had a little bit of contact along the way after he got past that first 4 weeks. But that's a hard place to be. But now that I'm on the third child who's just about to graduate high school, he graduates in like 3 weeks.
oh
And
gosh.
it like he is ready. When you get to that point and God, it's like it's God ordained, and you are just in that place of your life where you can relish that adult person that you got to
Brought into the
adulthood.
world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great feeling. And then I'm so proud of my children and who they've become. And again, that different dynamic, it just makes it easier, that transition a little easier.
Yeah, what a blessing. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so Mel, lots of our listeners are either for sure kind of full-time working mom professionals, and many of them leaders either formally or informally. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey into leadership, and then also on to serving women in this new way that with your podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been an educator since 1999. I graduated with my education degree and I became a teacher. And I taught for several years. And toward the end of me being in the classroom, I just kind of started feeling like, I don't know, God just kind of put it on my heart. I got my certification as a principal with not really any plan of using it. Um, I I thought I'll get it because I knew the test was going to change, and then it would be harder and I would have to take more classes, and I was already where I could just like finish up and get my certification, and then it could just sit
Mm.
until I was ready to use it if I ever got to that place, because I was scared. I was scared to be a principal. You know, it's a different type of being an educator. You are in a different position. So I was scared to like leave the classroom. I was comfortable in the classroom. But toward the end, my last couple of years, I had gotten my degree and God started putting it on my heart to like really think about a next step. And I got to the point where I was like, I can do what my principal's doing. And my principal did a great job. I'm not saying that she didn't. But I was like, I would have done it this way, or I have a different vision of how that could go, or, just those kind of things.
Yeah.
And it just really sparked my interest in going ahead and applying for jobs to be a principal.
Mm-hmm.
I had also been a leader in my church. I was the women's group president and vice president at certain different times. I was a youth sponsor. I'd served on the praise team. But I just felt called to do more in my career at that point. And so I completed that certification. I sat on it a little while, and then I'm like, I think I'm going to apply. I feel like I can do this. God gave me that confidence to do this.
Yeah.
And so I applied. The first year I don't even think I got an interview the first year at all. The next year I got some interviews, and I got a job I was the pre-K 4 principal at a small school district. It ended up being a 4-day school week. When I applied, when I got the interview, I didn't even know that because I never saw that anywhere on their website. I don't know if I just missed it or if it just didn't occur to me that schools actually did that, because where I was from, we didn't, we had 5-day school week.
Yeah.
So he worked it out. So I was commuting back and forth. It was 2 hours away, but it was the perfect school because I met people that furthered my career. Had I taken a job closer to home, I probably would not have grown the way I did in my leadership, and I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I had up there to meet people in the St. Louis area. And I got a job up here it took a long time to get in the St. Louis area, jobs. A lot of people apply for these jobs, and it was, some very stiff competition. And so I got a substitute instructional technology position. And when that ended, I had met someone that I worked with, and he had been in charter for a long time, and he got a job at a charter school up here. And he's like, they've got another position for a dean of instruction. So I applied, and I got the job as a dean of instruction at a charter school. And I learned so much. And along the way, of course, COVID has happened and all of these things. And I'd started an educational podcast, but I kind of had to put that away for a little while because I was finishing my doctorate degree. And you cannot do anything else at all while you're doing a doctorate degree, because you don't have time or capacity in your brain to do anything else but that.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to get done at a particular time and not have to pay for another semester. So I was busting it out trying to get done, so I didn't have to pay for an extra semester. And after I got that done, I just was like, God just kept telling me, I feel like you need to, I felt like he was telling me to do a little bit more. And so I had the calling to start another podcast, which was called Choose Your Next Yes. It was called Choose Your Best Yes. And then along the way, as I really niched into what I was supposed to be doing with the podcast, he told me to change that. And it worked out that I was really supposed to talk to women in midlife who were ready to transition in their career. And because they were empty nesters or going to be empty nesters very soon. They were professionals. They had these dreams of what they wanted to be all of their life. They kind of had to put that on hold maybe. And now they're in a place where they can either take classes and get a certification, or they can move into leadership or start a whole new career completely. And so that's how Choose Your Next Yes was born.
Awesome. That's cool. So we probably have people in both camps listening. So some that might be thinking, maybe leadership is my next yes, whereas we also have listeners who are current leaders. So let's take the woman that is thinking, I think maybe I'm cut out for leadership, or leadership might be my next career move. Can you tell me how you would start leading someone through that, determining whether or not that indeed is their next yes and their calling, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. So I coach women on how to get clear on what God is wanting them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing we do is we do a lot of prayer. I mean, prayer is always your best friend, and having that intimate relationship with God.
Right.
But even having an intimate relationship with God, sometimes you're still not 100% clear on what he's telling you to do. And I've been there myself. Like
Right.
I can pray and pray and pray, and I get in my own way sometimes. And I think I know what he's telling me, and I don't always know for sure. And so I'll make a move, and it may not be the move that he's telling me.
Right.
So to start, what I do with my women is we figure out what their spiritual gifts are, and we really figure out what God has given them to use, what tools he has given them.
Right.
And then after we figure that out, then we can figure out what careers, what are your passions, what are your interests, and what careers align with your gifts and talents, and then your passions and your interests. And then we can create a plan of how they can get there after that.
Mm-hmm. Great.
And then of course you have to, I mean, God put it on my heart. Like I almost give myself nervous energy sometimes when he like puts something on my heart, because like I get fixated on it a little bit. And so if you have that nervous energy, if you're fixated on something, you should probably be really tuning into what God's telling you, because he's not giving you that desire for just for
no
you
reason
to dismiss it. Yeah. He doesn't want you to dismiss it. So when I was moving into leadership, it was in my head all of the time. When he told me it was finally time to be a principal, that is all I thought about for a long time until I made that move. And I mean, it was a strong desire, a strong passion. I constantly was thinking of what I could do, how I could lead teachers, how I could lead my building and be the lead leader or the lead learner in my building. And so again, that starts with an intimate relationship with God, being really aligned with what he is telling you, and having your desires align with him. And the verse of he will give you the desires of your heart. A lot of people take that as, if I pray, then God's going to give me what I want. And that's not necessarily what he's saying.
Right.
So a long time ago, someone very wise said, that's not really what that verse means. What it means is, if you are in total alignment with God, if you truly trust him, and you are seeking his will fervently for your life, then he aligns your passions and your desires with his passions and his desires for your life.
Yeah.
And so, oddly enough, I just recorded an episode this morning with that exact same message. So
I love
when
that.
I get that out, your listeners can pop over there and listen to that.
Yeah.
It's going to be out today. So I kind of got a little behind on getting some episodes out. We had state testing for the last 3 weeks. And when you have state testing at school, you also think of nothing else but that. So that was like my focus, and it's exhausting. And so I didn't get an episode out yesterday like I should have. So that will go out today. So if your ladies want to pop over and listen to that and kind of listen to what I'm talking about on being in alignment with him.
Yes.
The episode's going to be total eclipse of the heart. So
I love that.
I know. And it actually, I don't even know, like God works in funny ways. He has a great sense of humor, but like he put that on my mind. And when I looked it up, there were 2 verses in that song that fit perfectly with my women and where they're going and how they feel in their life right now. So
well, and being someone that grew up through the 80s, I can appreciate the music.
Oh my gosh, the 80s music is the best.
It's
Even
the best.
my children who were born long after the 80s, they love my 80s music. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, mine too. So what about, and would you say that God kind of affirmed or validated that once you said yes to leadership? What are there ways in which you can look back and see how he continued to validate and affirm that indeed was his calling for you? Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I do. And I was just actually thinking, because he is continuing to validate where he's wanting me to go. Recently, he's changed where I thought I was going in one direction, and he's completely changed my mindset on that. And in my episode this morning, I talk about how he gives you the opportunity to try on these different things, just so you can see if they're a good fit. And you may have that desire to do something. And so he's like, yeah, go try it on, see how it fits. And then he's like, okay, now are you ready to listen to me and do what I really want you to do? Because you're going to have success in what I'm really wanting you to do. And so he continues to validate, and he validates through so many different avenues and through different people, or I'll hear a message, or my devotional for the day will further validate. And it's time for me to move out of the dean role and back into a principal position. I actually thought I was not going to be in education for a while. I met someone who has not worked a typical job like we think in many years, like his entire adult life. And so his schedule is it's completely opposite of mine. Yeah, exactly. He's definitely nocturnal. It's completely opposite of mine. And so all of this time after I met him, I'm like, I would really love to work from home, and I would like to be flexible for him and help him build his business and because he recently moved here from Miami, back here from Miami, and he was helping his mom get their insurance business back on track. And because his dad passed away a few years ago, and his mom she just needed a break from it, I think. And then he wanted to come back here. COVID took a toll on the music industry. That's what he does. He's a musician, and he owns an entertainment company. And so I thought, I love the fact that he can have his own hours, set his own hours, do his own thing. And so I wanted that. And then I think God gave me time to work through that. And then he's like, but you love education, and education, you're good at it. Why are you wanting out? And so now, as recently as this last 3 weeks, an opportunity fell in my lap that does not happen where I'm at. I was invited to apply, or not to an interview, but to apply for an interview. They haven't actually done interviews yet. So because it's so recent still yet. In St. Louis, you don't really get invited to apply for a position, because there are hundreds of people applying for every position up here. And it took me forever to even get into St. Louis in the first place, because there are so many people. When I first started trying to move to the St. Louis area, I didn't even have my doctorate yet. And up here, many people have their doctorate. Where I'm from in the country, very few people have a doctorate. And so you would stand out more down there. Up here, you're applying with many people. Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Dime a dozen. That's exactly what I was thinking this morning. They are a dime a dozen, and it doesn't devalue a doctorate degree in any means. It's hard work to get that. It is, you earn a doctorate degree by every means. And so I'm not devaluing that at all. But there are people with a doctorate degree that have more experience than me, or they have been in that district for a long time. And so you are in competition with people who have been established in the St. Louis area for all of their educational career. And so it's really hard to even get an interview in the first place. And then when you get invited to apply, immediately, oh my goodness, this is God telling me I need to apply. So
this doesn't happen. So it's a God thing.
Right. Yeah. And so as soon as I applied for that desire to not be in education, that desire to work from home, it just almost disappeared. So that's why I called it a total eclipse of the heart, because my heart completely changed the way that with what he was telling me. And so one part of the whole thing is based on being in complete submission to God.
Yeah.
And I thought I was being in complete submission to God, but I was not.
Mm-hmm.
I was still trying to dictate where my career went or what my next yes was going to be, what my next step in life was going to be. I was still trying to dictate that somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
And when he finally said, "You cannot control this, will you please give me the opportunity?" It completely changed.
Yeah.
And I realized, I don't care what you tell me to do, God. If you want me to work from home, I will work from home.
Right.
If you want me to go out of education completely, I will be out of education completely. If you want me to continue in education, I will continue in education completely. And as soon as I submitted and surrendered, he completely changed my thought process.
Mm-hmm.
And I am at peace with whatever he tells me.
Mm-hmm.
I am one that will give myself anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, trying to be the leader and be the boss and make things go the way I want them to. And if I'm sitting there thinking, okay, if I do this, then this will happen. If I don't do this, then this will happen. I struggle with anxiety anyway, like really, really bad anxiety. And that is the mindset that causes me to have anxiety about things. If I just surrender to him, then I don't have that internal struggle anymore.
Yeah, like that's when you know it's a God thing, because God's voice isn't one that confuses and condemns and causes disruption. God's voice calms and gives peace. And I mean, the fact that, like, what I hear you saying is he completely transformed your heart to align with what his calling
yes
for you. Like,
yes. And when you just said that he's not a God of confusion, but for several months now I've been confused.
yes.
And I'm like, okay, so I keep hearing that God is not a God of confusion, but I am not clear on what and here I'm trying to coach other women on being clear on what they're supposed to be doing and how to know. And I'm like, I am completely confused on what you're wanting me to do, God. I do not understand why you're not leading me and giving me the clarity on what I need to be doing. And it was because I was in my own way.
Yeah.
And I was not completely aligning myself with him and completely submitting to what he wanted. And once I did that, it's been completely different. And even this morning, I'm sitting here recording an episode and I look up and I'm getting a call from my executive director at the charter school where I'm at now. And I'm like, why is she calling me on a Saturday? First of all, she never calls me, period.
Yeah.
Secondly, why is she calling me on a Saturday? And she's like, hey, there's an assistant principal position at one of the schools here. Do you want to apply? I'm like, okay. She's like, send me your resume right now. And so, I mean, like, even just 30 minutes ago, I sent her my resume. And so, like, when God moves, when you finally submit to him and you finally let him take control of everything, he will lead you more swiftly than you can ever imagine. Like, he can move mountains for you if you will just get out of your way and get out of his way and let him do the thing that he wants to do.
Sister friends, we're going to continue this conversation with Dr. Mel on Friday's episode, so tune in to hear the rest of the story.
I pray this episode blessed you, spoke to you, or encouraged you in some way. If so, please share it with a friend and head on over to Apple Podcasts to leave me a review. That's the only way for me to know if you're enjoying the show. Nothing blesses me more than to hear from you. Also, come on over to our free Facebook community. This is a great place for us to support one another on our faith and leadership journeys. You can find the link to the group in the show notes, or go to gracefilledleader.com/community. If you have questions or content ideas for the show, please send me a message on SpeakPipe or via email. Go to gracefilledleader.com/contact and leave a written or voice recorded message. I would love to know how I can best serve you on the podcast. Now to Him who can do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us. Ephesians 3, verse 20. Until next time, my friends, God bless.